You might be sitting there, heartbroken, asking yourself what you did wrong, how someone could turn their back on you so cruelly. But here's the truth. You weren't left because you weren't good enough. You were discarded because you started to wake up. And to a narcissist, that means one thing: loss of control. You once believed the sweet words, the promising eyes. You thought that if you just loved deeply enough, sacrificed enough, they would change. But what you didn't realize is this: a narcissist never came to love you. They came to extract from you, to drain you dry. And the moment you no longer served their inflated ego, they left as if you never existed. In today's video, I won't just show you the 7 unmistakable signs that a narcissist is truly done with you. I'll help you uncover the bitter gift hidden in their departure. The opportunity to be reborn, to rise, and to never be manipulated again. They suddenly cut off contact and disappear. Have you ever experienced that moment? When a narcissist vanishes like a ghost, without a word, without a trace. One day they're right there manipulating you with sweet talk or cruel silence. The next, they've cut off all contact, blocked you on every platform, erased you from their world as if you never existed. You're left behind in the rubble of your own heartbreak, your mind spinning with 1,000 unanswered questions. What did I do wrong? Why would they do this to me? While you drown in confusion and pain, they walk away coldly, already seeking out a new supply to feed their ever-expanding ego. This isn't carelessness. It's a meticulously calculated strategy by someone who thrives on power and control. Don't weave comforting illusions that they disappeared because you weren't good enough, loving enough, or didn't try hard enough. The bitter truth is this: you were never the center of their story. You were merely a tool, a source of fuel to maintain their delusions of grandeur. The moment you started asking questions, stopped dancing to their manipulative tune, or simply became boring in their game, they discarded you like a broken object and moved on to the next target. And they didn't leave because of your shortcomings. They left because they needed someone new to keep their ego narrative alive. In the narcissist world, there is no space for real love, only puppets they control until the strings snap. And sadly, to them, you had simply expired. But here's what you must remember: their disappearance is not your loss. It's your opportunity. When they blocked you, when they erased you from their life, they unknowingly handed you the key to escape the prison you didn't even realize you were trapped in. Don't sit there in tears. Don't dig through the past for answers. And above all, don't blame yourself for not being able to hold on to them. They were never worthy of your tears. They don't deserve your guilt or your shame. Instead, stand up, wipe your eyes, and face the truth. They were never your lover. They were your and you, whether you know it yet or not, just escaped their grip. Use this moment to redefine yourself. They may be off looking for a new supply, but you no longer have to be anyone's source of validation. You are a human being, independent, powerful, and worthy of a life that isn't defined by someone else's approval. This is your time to learn how to love yourself, how to stand firm without needing anyone to hold you up, how to live free from the strings pulled by those who only know how to drain your soul. Subscribe to this channel so we can go deeper into how narcissists operate, and more importantly, how you can rebuild your life stronger than ever. Share your story in the comments. I want to hear how you survived moments like this. This is not your ending. This is the beginning of your true freedom. 2, they deliberately create conflict. They start picking fights, nitpicking everything you do, pushing you into arguments. The goal is simple: to blame you and justify their departure. This is a manipulative tactic designed to make you feel like you were the reason the relationship fell apart. But if you look past the smokescreen of these constant fights, you'll uncover a disturbing truth. This isn't mere emotional volatility. It's a calculated psychological strategy. A narcissist doesn't provoke conflict because they're losing control. They do it to gain control. They don't shout because they're hurt. They shout so you'll believe you're the one inflicting pain. This behavior is a form of reversed projection, a defense mechanism where the narcissist hurls the parts of themselves they refuse to confront, deep insecurities, fear of abandonment, feelings of worthlessness, onto you. Then they manipulate the situation so that you react exactly how they want, When you get angry, emotional, cry, or explode, they remain calm and smugly say, "See? She's crazy, he's unstable." And just like that, they absolve themselves of guilt by making you the problem. This not only erodes your self-esteem slowly and cruelly, but it also creates a painful spiral of self-blame. You start questioning yourself, if only I were more patient, more calm, more loving, maybe things wouldn't have gone so badly. But you don't realize you're playing a game where the rules are rigged entirely in their favor. When a narcissist intentionally stirs conflict, they're not seeking resolution, they're seeking a reaction. They want you to lose control so they can return cloaked in false morality, saying, "I tried everything, but you're too sensitive. I can't live in a relationship full of drama." Then they walk away, wearing the mask of the calm, rational victim, while you're left drowning in the emotional wreckage they created. What you need to carry with you is this: not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every argument is rooted in truth. And not every crack in the relationship is your fault. Learn to detach from the emotional scripts they try to write you into. Let your calm be your shield against their manipulative attacks. Only when you stop reacting the way they want you to can you reclaim control over your emotions and your life. And in that moment, your silence, your grounded, unshakable presence will be the one thing that leaves them feeling emptier than ever. 3, they become completely indifferent. When a narcissist no longer cares about your words, your feelings, or your thoughts, it's a clear sign they've emotionally withdrawn from the relationship. You no longer hold any utility value for them. And that's the key word, utility. In the narcissist's mind, a relationship is not a connection between two autonomous emotional beings. It's a transaction. You give them admiration, submission, emotional fuel to inflate their ego, and in return, they grant you their presence. But once you stop supplying the emotional energy they crave, once you become familiar, less reactive, or begin to awaken, they feel no attachment, no sadness. What they feel is boredom, and so they withdraw. A narcissist's indifference isn't just thoughtless neglect, it's a cold, invisible form of punishment. Quiet but cutting. They don't need to yell, they don't need to threaten. They simply stop looking at you, stop listening, stop being with you. They treat you like an object gathering dust in a forgotten corner. And for many survivors, this emotional disappearance is more painful than any outburst. It implants a brutal question in your mind. Why am I not enough for them to care? This is the moment you need to face a hard but liberating truth. The problem was never you. The problem is that you were engaging with someone incapable of true emotional connection. A narcissist does not love in the way you understand love. They don't empathize. They don't listen to understand. They listen to react, to control. When you stop reacting the way they want, they don't seek repair. They go hunting for new supply. Psychologically, this is a classic case of emotional disengagement, a withdrawal tactic rooted in ego preservation. They can't face the fact that the relationship no longer feeds their need for dominance, so they choose to ignore you rather than confront the collapse of their inflated self-image. They don't ask questions because your answers no longer offer them excitement or power. So what should you do? Don't chase their silence. Don't interpret their coldness as a test of your devotion. Their indifference is not a challenge. It's the end of an unhealthy bond. Stop blaming yourself. Stop trying to reclaim the attention of someone who never truly saw you in the first place. Instead, turn inward and ask yourself, am I in a relationship that makes me feel invisible? If the answer is yes, then you deserve to walk away. Not because they've gone cold, but because you never needed someone else's attention to affirm your worth. Your value isn't determined by their gaze. You were never meant to be furniture in someone else's fantasy. You were meant to be seen, heard, and loved fully, and without condition. 5, they manipulate you into being the one who leaves first. This is one of the most insidious and cruel tactics in the narcissist's arsenal, pushing you to the brink of emotional exhaustion so that you become the one to initiate the breakup. And in that very moment, they don't just escape accountability, they also slip into a carefully rehearsed role, the victim. They know full well that if they were the one to walk away, they'd face uncomfortable questions, judgment, and possibly even shame. So instead, they opt for a more strategic exit. By manipulating you into retreating, they grow cold, distant, and subtly start referencing an ex or worse, someone new, planting seeds of jealousy, comparison, and doubt into your psyche. And when your intuition picks up on these red flags, they dismiss it with a smirk and a dismissive, "you're just being too sensitive." This emotional erosion happens slowly, but deliberately. Day by day, you begin to feel like you're living with a stranger. The person who once cherished you now gazes at you with nothing but apathy. But when you speak up, when you question this shift, the narcissist immediately assumes the role of the misunderstood soul, claiming innocence and pushing the narrative that you are the one overreacting. You find yourself caught between two psychological realities. On the one hand, you're being pushed to your emotional limits. On the other, you feel guilty for not being able to just hang on a little longer until one day you snap. You say the words they've been waiting to hear, "I can't do this anymore." And just like that, they sigh in relief. On the surface, they might pretend to be devastated. They may cry. They may speak in hushed, mournful tones. But inside, this is the very moment they engineered, because now, not only do they avoid responsibility, they use your departure as material for their next act. I gave everything and they left me. They share this narrative with friends, coworkers, even future partners, casting you as the cold-hearted villain who abandoned a deeply feeling soul. From a psychological standpoint, this is a textbook case of responsibility evasion through reverse discard. Narcissists can't tolerate the image of being rejected, so they orchestrate the conditions to ensure that you walk away first, then use that very decision as fuel for their ongoing manipulation. It allows them to maintain their role as the protagonist in their own grandiose storyline. So, what's the antidote? Refuse to play the role they've scripted for you. If you must walk away, do it not because you were cornered, but because you chose peace. And when they play the victim, let them. You don't owe anyone a justification. You don't need to plead your case. The truth always remains with those who are clear-eyed enough to walk away when the script becomes toxic. You are not the bad guy for ending the relationship. You are the brave one for stepping off a stage that was never built for mutual love, but for control. 6, they seek a new source of supply. You might think that when a narcissist leaves you, they sit in remorse, reflecting on what they've lost. But let's be clear, that's a fantasy. When you stop being a rich source of narcissistic supply, when you set boundaries, when you stop begging for attention, they don't grieve. They pivot. Silently and strategically, they begin searching for a new target, not because they've fallen out of love, but because they've outgrown your usefulness. This isn't emotional evolution, it's predatory instinct. Picture this. While you're still curled up in pain, lost in confusion, asking yourself what you did wrong, they're already casting their net elsewhere. Someone new, someone more naive, someone ready to pedestal them the way you once did. But they don't flaunt this new connection, at least not yet. They're too calculated for that. Instead, they test the waters. They build the next relationship quietly, assessing if this new supply is rich enough, obedient enough, admiring enough to replace you. All the while, they keep you close, just in case. You may notice the subtle signs, cryptic messages, vague mentions of someone unfamiliar, sudden shifts in attention. But when you question them, they flip the script. Suddenly, you are the jealous one, the controlling one, the insecure partner who reads too much into everything. This is the game. They dig your emotional grave with one hand while seducing a new source of supply with the other. But let this truth empower you, not crush you. They didn't move on because you weren't enough. They moved on because their insatiable ego always needs feeding. They replaced you not because you were unworthy, but because you dared to stop dancing to their tune. You asked for respect. You stopped being their mirror, their cheerleader, their emotional servant. And that, to a narcissist, is unforgivable. Their need for new supply is not your failure, it's their flaw. You were not discarded because you lacked something. You were discarded because you woke up to their manipulation. You disrupted the cycle. You stopped playing the role. And that's something to be proud of. So now take this moment to rise. Let them chase the next perfect admirer. You don't need to be anyone's supply ever again. This is your invitation to rebuild, not for revenge, but for you. Your value has never depended on their choice to keep you. It has always been yours to define. Let them walk. Don't look back. Reclaim your story and walk toward the kind of freedom that no narcissist can steal. A life where you are the center, where you are enough without applause, without permission, and without the illusion of their validation. You are not disposable. You are a survivor. And your healing is the ending they never saw coming. 7, they bluntly end the relationship. This is the final blow, sharp, cold, and merciless. After a long stretch of manipulation, testing, and emotional erosion, the narcissist finally lays their cards on the table. No more pretense, no more intricate performances. They look at you with empty eyes and say, I don't love you anymore. I found someone better. I want to break up. No explanation, no empathy, not even a parting touch, just a sudden, emotionless end. As if you never existed. To them, you've served your purpose. Now you're obsolete. For emotionally healthy individuals, breakups, no matter how painful, require basic respect. But for narcissists, it's a final performance of power, a last act of control where your pain becomes their closing triumph. The cold detachment in their tone isn't mere indifference, it's a veiled message. I own the timeline. I decide when things begin and when they end. Your feelings are irrelevant. What cuts the deepest isn't just the abandonment, it's the way they weaponize the moment. There is no closure, no space for your voice, no answers. You are left standing in a storm of emotions with nothing to hold on to, plagued by questions like, what did I do wrong? How bad did things get for them to walk away like this? But here's the truth. You did nothing wrong. This ending wasn't a reaction. It was a script, long written, and you were never invited to co-author it. From a psychological perspective, this behavior exemplifies a dynamic known as emotional detachment with punitive discard, where the narcissist not only walks away, but does so in a way that punishes you. The goal isn't just to leave, it's to shatter your self-worth in the process. It's their final power move, the ultimate assertion of superiority. I get to discard you, and you get to carry the weight. The cruel irony? Shortly after they leave, they often reemerge in someone else's story as the good person. They'll say, you were too emotional, too demanding, too incapable of understanding them. They rewrite history with ease, casting themselves as the one who tried everything while painting you as the reason for the collapse. They don't just leave you behind, they bury the truth beneath a carefully constructed narrative to protect their image. But if you're standing in that cold, echoing aftermath, feeling blindsided, humiliated, or broken, let me say this is not your ending. This is your beginning. You didn't lose because they left. You won because you're free. Free from a relationship where love was never mutual, where you were never truly seen, only used. Don't look for meaning in their cruel words. Look inward. Reclaim the version of yourself that is still whole, still worthy, still powerful, just misplaced in the wrong hands. And this time, you don't need anyone to declare when your story begins or ends. You are the author now, and the next chapter is yours to write. When the narcissist turns their back and rushes off to secure a new supply to continue feeding their inflated ego, don't let your heart sink in pain or self-doubt. Don't watch their fading silhouette and mistake it for the end of your worth. No, it is the brilliant beginning of a quiet victory you've already claimed. They may continue their predator cycle, leaping from person to person in a never-ending hunger for admiration and control, but you have broken the chain. You've escaped the puppet role in the twisted play they directed. This isn't a story of abandonment. It's a story of liberation, of the moment you stood up and declared you would no longer be their victim. See this truth with clarity. They didn't leave because you weren't enough, loving enough, worthy enough, or strong enough. They left because they could no longer bear someone who dared to draw boundaries, who dared to demand respect, who dared to step out of the shadow they tried to force you to live in. They need fresh prey, people who haven't yet seen through the mask, people still willing to kneel so they can climb. But you chose differently. You chose yourself. And that is a power they will never understand, never possess. Your life didn't end when they walked away. It began stronger, more authentic, and freer than ever. Now is the time for you to take the pen and write the closing chapter of this story, not one that revolves around them, but one that revolves around you. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything to them. The greatest act you can perform is to live well, live truthfully, and live for you. Build a future where you are the center of your own world, where your kindness is given to those who deserve it, where your love is never again twisted into a tool of control. You don't need their gaze to feel seen, nor their words to feel powerful. Your value was never in their hands. It lives in the way you rise from the ruins, in the way you keep shining even when they tried to smother your light. Imagine a life no longer pulled by the strings of someone who only loves their own reflection. A life where you breathe with an open chest, where every step you take is proof of the resilience you forged in your darkest days. Freedom isn't something they can bestow, it's a flame you ignite within, a reward earned through sweat, tears, and unshakable courage. Let them chase their next supply. You don't need to chase anyone. You are already enough. Enough to let go, enough to glow, enough to live as your truest self. Walk forward without looking back and show the world that you are not merely a survivor. You are a victor in the most radiant and honest way.